on. So if you want to follow along with me, first of all, I'm using the where it says note questions for we're working in Illustrator. There's a couple of things in Illustrator I'm going to show you how to do. And if you go to today's Moodle page, at the very top, I'm giving you 3 reference PDFs. I think I've downloaded 1 or 2 of them already. But in these references, these are how to use the different software. So instead of buying a book, these are free, these are available from Adobe. You can click on it, and I'll say, like, how do you use the appearance palette? Well, I'm giving you the specific page you can go to if you want to learn more about using that palette, or how do you reshape an object or apply a certain technique to it. So for instance, on the first question, you can go to page 379. Let's see if it'll work. Bet I have to download it. You can go to page 379 of this PDF and should be able to find it. Of course, it's not all loaded up. Hey, here we go. There it is. There's the appearance attributes, and here's the palette that we're going to be working with today and how to do that. So if you don't know how to do something, or if I go too quickly, use these PDFs, use these references to help you learn the software and finish out your project. So flipping over to the next couple of pages, I've given you step-by-step instructions for 2 of the exercises, but there's actually 3 of them. Go to today's page, there's the line work pattern, there's the ribbon, and there's also the named warp. I'll do named warp first. If you were in my Graphic Design 3 class last semester, this is going to look a little familiar, but we used it again in the previous class. I'll open it up. That's okay. The first thing you're going to do is learn how to warp specific text to use within a document. So you can see on this one how I've got little town warping up this way. Or if you look in some of the other examples, you can see how the type has been positioned and changed, how it gets smaller and larger. This is really easy to do in Adobe Illustrator, and we do this by using what's called an envelope distortion. So what I want you to do for this first exercise is to envelope distort your name. It can be first name or last name, whatever works best. But we're going to use the type tool. So there's your type tool. I'm just going to click once. I'm not going to make a text box. I just want to do a line of text. So we'll do Benjamin, make it a little bit bigger. And you can choose whatever font that you want to work with. Let's do with Nashville. Okay, so there's this one. With your name selected, I'm going to make a copy of it and put it next to each little item that I have. Remember, you can hold down the Option key and quickly make a copy of anything, and I'll just do the first couple of them. But to make an envelope distortion, or warption, select your name, go up to Object, Envelope Distort, and we're going to make it with the warp. Now with warp turned on, first of all, there's different styles that you can choose from. And notice that the curvature of each style matches one of these styles here. So the first one is an arc. And if you turn on preview, you get an idea of what that type of arc is going to do. The more you bend it, of course, the more distorted it's going to be. And of course, you can go backwards and distort it this way. What I want you to do is just practice working out these type of distortions and these types of arcs. When you've done one, simply move on to the next one. Repeat the process. Go to Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp, and then choose the appropriate one for that one that you're working with. Just to let you know, there's also some horizontal and vertical distortions. So the horizontal in this case will make one side a little bit bigger, one side smaller. Vertical will make top and bottom. So you can get very, very distorted very quickly. But you can see how this is used for your particular type of quote. So if you have one line that's going this way, I could easily distort this one. Tell you what. Let's say that I arced the upper side of it to match that, and I can then put another word underneath it. And so now these two words will fit nicely into each other. This is how you fill in those negative spaces for your design. Pretty cool? Another thing to know about, when you've created a design, or excuse me, when you've typed out something, first of all, you notice you can change the fill color. You can even use your type tool and edit the type of text. But once you apply an envelope distortion, you can't adjust the text easily. So if I chose my type tool, I can't type back on it. It's just going to make another type to do. Notice even the fill color, it's set to gray. If you want to edit what's inside of the envelope distortion, go back to Envelope Distort and do Edit Contents. With the contents chosen, then you can choose your type tool and make a change, adding text or adding anything else to it. It's going to stay the same. It's actually going to act a little funky when you start typing. Notice that it'll keep, if I turn back on the Edit the Envelope, it'll keep the same envelope but still stretch the text out to fill it in and to fit it. Pretty cool? So that's for this first assignment. Very, very easy. Like I said, you should be able to finish this one today. Do one for each of these different exercises. Let me show you the next exercise to do. The next one is how to draw off a ribbon to work with. I want your ribbon to look something relatively well designed. And so this one, notice that you can put text in it, put type in it, and also it curves around and flourishes, and it's got a specific style to the edges of it. Let me show you how I created this particular type of ribbon. I'm going to make a new document. And we're going to use our pen tool mostly to create this, this type of ribbon effect. Let me show you the easy way of doing it. With our pen tool, I'm going to set my fill color to none. All I'm doing is following along with my instructions, and then make one curved line. Click, click and drag, and you know with the pen tool, if I click again, it's going to complete that curve. One simple curved line. I can even make the curve a little bit bigger, or excuse me, not the curve, the width of it. Oh, come on, make sure it's selected. Let's go with that. This is going to be the top of my ribbon's curve. So next I'm going to make a bottom side of it to look exactly the same. Hold down Option and drag. Now I've got the width of my, my line. Next thing, I'm going to use my pen. I'm not going to connect these two. Instead, I'm just going to draw off a line just outside of that one. You'll see why in just a second. If you wanted to end it, you could even have fancy type of ending, something like that. But I'm not connecting those two particular points. If you wanted, you could even add, let's say it curved around, so you had another piece that came back this way. Little ending points to it. Very simple, very basic type of curve. Y'all look up on the board. I learned how to draw ribbons. Do y'all remember the TV show, or did you grow up on the TV show, with Commander Mark, Imagination Station? You remember that? It was an awesome PBS show on how to draw cartoons. And he taught me how to draw ribbons. Here's what you do. It doesn't matter how curved your line is. You can do some very fancy ribbons just by starting off like that. Any particular type of line. As long as you copy what's the top to below, it works out. I'm just going to draw a line straight down everywhere that there's an edge. So I drew down, down, there's an edge right there, edge right there. Just following, make sure it's right at the edge. Just following the line. Then all you do is copy whatever curve there is, just connecting it here. Curves down and around, curves around, curves around. And if you pay particularly close attention to the details, it tends to look pretty good, kind of like a curved edge. You can do the same thing digitally. So if I got into Illustrator and you really wanted to do a fancy type of curve, see how well I can do this. I could do something like that. We'll make a copy of it. And I need to connect these particular points. By the way, you can use your line segment tool. This tool right here will draw just straight lines. It tends to go a little bit quicker. However, I need to get rid of this particular edge to it. If you do need to chop off something, well, select this line. There's a tool called your scissors tool. And this works just like you would think cutting a string in half. I can cut this line by clicking right here in half, and now I have two different lines to work with. I have this top one, and I have this bottom section. And I can just delete away the top section. Need to add the lines to the other edges as well. So when you make your ribbons, play around with this. Have fun practicing, especially the pen tool. Pen tool is always hard to do. Practice drawing this ribbon. Make yours as fancy as you want it to be. The last thing you need to do is apply a different stroke style. By default, Illustrator adds a stroke to be just a consistent width. It's all the same from start to finish. But if you select it, to make it look a little bit more calligraphic, like it was done with a pen, change your uniform stroke profile to one of these profiles. These will, let's see, come on. For this one, it'll start off thin, get thick, and end thin again. And it'll look something like this. Very, very cool, very easy way of doing cartoonish type drawings. And of course, you can also change the width of it if you think it needs to be a little bit thinner or thicker on different sides. If you wanted to add some shading to it, you can also go in with your line tool and quickly add lines. Sure to hold down your shift key to add different shading effects to that as well. I'll let you have fun with that. The main thing is I want you to practice drawing those ribbon type shapes, working in the pen tool and using those type of tools. I'm going to let y'all in on one more secret before I let you go. A lot of people have difficulty drawing these type of curls. Let me show you the fun and easy way of doing it. Underneath your line segment tool, there's a spiral tool. This tool, all it does is draw spirals. As difficult as that is, when you click and drag, you can draw a spiral easily. If you use your up and down arrows, you can add to and take away how much it curves. So if I wanted to add a spiral, say to the end of this one, well, it's turning the wrong way. I want to hit the R key. It's going to rotate it. It's going to flip it. Now I can add that on right there to the end. Now I can use that as a spiral to work with. Question?
What are you using to rotate it?
To rotate it. Oh, I was just clicking and dragging my mouse.
Okay.
Yep, as long as I hold down my mouse, I can position it. Remember, you can also use your space bar to move it around. Use the R key to rotate it or to flip it, and use your arrow keys to add to and take away from it. And that's how I was able to do that. Great question. All right, so this is your second exercise. Make the ribbon work to work from there. Questions about that? Question?
For the spiral tool generated part, could you distort it to where it looked more like it was actually there? Like right now, it doesn't look, it just looks like it's there. But could you move it back, like kind of?
Oh, like skew it, make it look more in perspective? Yeah, good question. So what she's asking is, it looks very flat. If this was a real spiral, you can select it and just kind of squish it down. So now it looks like it's going off into perspective. It's actually going behind everything. Good question. I didn't even think about that. And then you can add and change it up for that way. Last thing, and this is kind of the most complex one. I want to show you how to create a pattern that you can use for this drop shadow, and also to add to the inside of a letter. For instance, here's Bethlehem. Actually, I did several copies of it. Here is Bethlehem filled in with this repeating pattern. And so what I want you to do is actually make this pattern, and we're going to apply it to the characters that you're working with. So I'm going to make a new document. Letter size looks good. And there's some other little tools that go along with this one. But this one, we'll break it down into something simple. First thing we got to do is make a bunch of lines. And to do that, I'm just going to use my line segment tool. I'm not even going to worry about a fill color. Draw one line on one side, and I'm going to make a copy of it. Hold down Option key on the other side. Okay? Here's how I can make copies of it in between the entire thing. Rather than copying a bunch of them and trying to space it out, that's going to take forever. It's not going to look just right. There's a tool in Illustrator that allows you to blend from one object to the other one. It's this tool right here. It's called the Blend tool. With it, I can click on one object and another object, and it's actually going to try to blend in between these two. Now right now it's doing a whole bunch of them. But if I double click on this one, the tool, I can bring up the options, and we'll change it from smooth color to a specific number of steps, and you can see there's a bunch of them. Let's see what happens if I set it to 50. Now you see there's 50 copies in between the two of them. You can use your arrow keys to dial it down or to type in a number, but whatever number is in here, that's the number that's in between those two. So 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Here's what makes this really cool. So I've got 50 of them in between. If I change the width of this very last line, let's see, I'm going to use my stroke palette to do this one, to say something like 10. Now check out what's happening. It's blending from a thin line into a thicker line. So this is how you can get a gradation type of effect using lines, right? This is that hatching effect that you probably learned about in Illustrator, or excuse me, in drawing class. Here's kind of the real power of the blend tool. Watch what happens if I use an object. So I've got a circle, and I'm going to blend it into a star. Choose your blend tool. Click on the circle first, and then on the star. And the computer is going to look at it and try to interpret, you know, what would it look like blending from one object into the next one. You see what it's doing? Really, really cool stuff. Remember, you can double-click to bring up the tool options. If you want to give it more steps, this is what it looks like to be able to do that as well. But for what we're going to do, we're not going to worry about shapes. I just want you to make a line pattern that you can work with. You can make it go thicker or thinner if you want. I will make it a little bit taller, and you'll see why in just a second. And let's make it a little bit fewer. Okay. So with this, I want to make this a pattern that I can fill inside of a letter. Now, if we have our swatches palette open, if I was to make a rectangle, of course you can fill a rectangle with any one of these colors, pre-made colors that you've worked with. You can also fill it with gradients, you've learned about that, and you can fill it with these patterns. Well, here's how we can make this pattern, our repeating lines, to be filled into here. I'm going to select my pattern. I'm going to drag it into the swatches palette. So click it right on the edge, usually you have to do it. Click it and drag it into the swatches. When I let go, notice that there's a new swatch inside of my pattern. Now watch what happens when I choose my rectangle, click on it. It's now filled in for that one. When I move it around, everything is pretty good. I can even scale this up. The pattern scales with me. Scale it down, the pattern scales with me as well. Now I do want to let you know of one trap, one thing to think about. Watch what happens when I move this around. Notice everything kind of stays with it. I'm going to double click on my move tool. Oh, let's choose the object first. Now double click on it. And I'm going to turn off the options for the patterns. Now watch what happens when I move my object. What's happening?
You're moving it further down the pattern.
It's moving further. The pattern's not moving with me. Oh, there it is, actually repeating right there. The object is moving, but the pattern is staying still. So if you do this and you're trying to move an object around and your pattern just isn't working out, double click and open up the move options and turn this on, and it should be able to work really well with that. Make sense? So let's apply this to a letter that we're working on. Choose my type. I like the letter Q. We'll make it even bigger. like the font Baskerville. It's just a good old school, like you can set your watch to that font. That's a good font. Okay, so when I created this, this letter, just one letter to work with, right now it's the computer is seeing it as a font itself, which means I can of course change the color of it and everything, but I can also delete it and retype in something else. What I want to do is to be able to see the vector information about this font. So to do that, we need to create the outlines for this type by going to Type and Create Outlines, and this is what this is going to do. Now notice what I have. See how you can see all the little vector points? Now it's no longer just a font or a type piece. It's an actual object. It's something that's drawn off, and you can get all the vector information going along with it. Did I lose everybody with that? All good. When you do your type and your layout, you'll have to convert this to outlines in order to apply some of these changes. Here's the reason why. Next step is we want to be able to fill this in with a particular color. But we're going to do it a special way. Probably you've never done it this way before. There's a palette called your Appearance palette. And if you don't see it, I've got it open somewhere. Here it is down here. This palette tells you how all of your objects tend to appear. Their fill colors, their strokes, their opacities. I'm going to click on Contents, and you can see I have a stroke of none and a fill color. Same thing that I have over here and also at the top. No big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing the fill color. First of all, instead of it being black, in this case I'm going to make it white. The fun thing is an object doesn't just have to have one fill color. You can have multiple fill colors. So I'm going to copy this by clicking on the little duplicate icon. Now notice I've got two different fill colors. Let's turn this one into our new fill stroke that we created. Now it's being filled into this one. If I was to change the color of this one to say red, notice what's happening. Why is this showing through? Why is it blue and black?
It's transparent.
It's transparent, and also notice the blue is behind this one as well. So you can have as many fill colors as you want, especially if you have different transparencies. In this case, we're going to do the same, just set it to white and this fill color on top. Same thing for the stroke. Let's add an outline to it. In this case, I'll make it black, and we'll change the size of it, something pretty big. Here's the next problem. Notice what's happening when I make the stroke a lot thicker. Why does this not look good? You lose the pattern. It's starting to cover up everything. Well, it would be great if the stroke was below the fill color. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click it and drag it until it's below it. So now check out the pecking order. You've got the stripe fill color on top of the white fill color on top of the stroke. So now I can make the stroke as thick as I want, and I'm not losing my pattern. Now we'll start to do some funky little things like that. We're not going to go that big with it. I think 10 point tend to work out pretty well. All cool? Same thing. Let's do one more thing. We're going to add another stroke, change its color to white, and now you've got a double, whoops, let's make this a little bit smaller, a double stroke inside of it. So you've got a little bit of a gap in between those two. Very cool? Awesome. One last thing. To make it stand out even more, I'm going to give this a drop shadow. To do that, I'm going to copy this one. You can go up to Edit and Copy. Copy's been saved. And I want you to paste it. If I just pasted it again, it would paste it right there. Instead, I want to paste it behind the object that I'm working with. So we're going to use Paste in Back. Notice Command B is the keyboard shortcut. Now it looks like nothing happened, but if you use your arrow keys, you can nudge it off to the side. There's my copy that I had. Let's change its contents to just a black fill. So I'm going to get rid of that fill, turn it to black. Let's get rid of this stroke, so the other one's already black. And now I've got a nice drop shadow to complement what I'm working on. And you can see how they did this within these different types of designs. Let's see if I can find that really good one. Of course, this is probably the font, but now you know how to add your own lines into this one. You can see how they added the line work and the little drop shadows into this particular type of design as well. Make your own ribbon, make your own different types of effects to work with. As soon as you're done with each of these, you're going to upload the Illustrator file to the Moodle page. There should be a place, here they are. So here's the exercise for the name warp, the ribbon, and for the line work. If you don't finish these today, we'll work on them next class period. By next class period, have an idea of how you want to lay out. Start working out and thumbnailing your ideas. We'll talk a little bit more about placement and things you want to work with. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to you. Stop recording.